Hi guys, welcome back to our video.
Hey guys.
If you are new here, our name's Beck and Connor and we moved from Australia all the way to Canada. I won't go too much into our backstory. There's loads of videos on our channel you can go and check out, and I'll link one very important one up here on the card showing you our actual move from Australia, packing our bags and getting all the way to Canada. I just wanted to do a little
brief background story.
A brief background, not a beef background. Okay, so I am 35, Connor is 33, I'm a cougar. He is originally from Ireland, Northern Ireland. He moved from there to Australia where I met him once he got permanent residency and then citizenship. 2 months later we decided to move to Canada. So yeah, we're sort of collecting passports at this
Got my passport in Australia, then flew off to Canada.
Our original plan when we were coming to Canada was to get IEC visas, which is a working holiday visa. We've also got 2 little kids that we'll bring in with us and our dogs. We were going to buy an RV, travel Canada, explore, and then settle down and get a job. But then COVID hit and obviously the rules and regulations changed, and the only way to leave Australia was to have an essential job, and that was the only way to get into Canada. So Connor got a job as a farm manager.
Yeah, farm supervisor in BC. On
Canada's largest cattle ranch. So we ended up moving to British Columbia. It wasn't the plan, it was always to move to Alberta, but BC was fantastic. I'll link another video up here of probably the highlight reel of our time on the ranch.
Yeah, like the wildlife that we seen there was unreal.
Every day we saw black bears.
Yeah, like I think most people traveling to Canada coming to see that. It
was a given for us in spring and summer to see black bears, coyotes. Every night we could hear coyotes howling and yapping, and
deer,
moose,
moose.
Yeah,
just everything.
We didn't see elk there, did we?
No, that was here, sorry.
Yeah. So it was fantastic, but we were not able to sustain our savings account there because we didn't really get paid enough. So we moved to Alberta. Connor got his regular job back again, which is a precision farming specialist. And I'm a stay-at-home mum. I'll go into that more in here, but I'm actually a primary school teacher by trade. That's my degree. And on my Instagram, I had a few people asking questions, so I left it open to all my Instagram followers. You can go and follow me here and Connor here. Connor's not very active on Instagram though.
I haven't been on it very much recently in the last
No,
6
you
or
never
7
really.
months.
You still get followers though, but
thanks to you.
Yeah. So yeah, I left it open to my followers to ask me a bunch of questions because I have very like-minded followers who want to move to Canada or want to see how we got here. And we're going to answer, I think I've written down...
Too many questions.
18 questions I'm going to answer it. There was a lot of doubles as well with questions and I couldn't answer them all. So hopefully I got to yours and answer it.
Hopefully we can answer them.
I know. We will not be answering visa questions as in like, how do I move to Canada? I'm from the UK. How did you get there? Because our visa situation is very different to most.
Well, it's just, everyone's individual. It's so specific to what country you're traveling from, how you're traveling.
Yeah, your age.
What age you
your
are.
Your degrees or if you have education or anything like that. It's very different and it's too hard. We do want to warn people to watch out for immigration consultants that are scammers. There is so many out there that will scam you so much money. We have never hired an immigration consultant other than one time to ask a question, but they never did any of my visa work. Like we just paid them for a consult to find out where we needed to go, and then we did everything ourselves online through the IRCC website.
I think what you like, the information that you've found through the websites and that it's a lot simpler process here than when I tried to move to Australia. Like it's a lot more laid out, I suppose, for getting visas here. It kind of makes a bit more sense. Whereas when I was in Australia trying to get the visa, it was...
And I did all your visa paperwork for you.
Very double Dutch and trying to understand.
Yeah. And here is a little cheaper to do visas, I find, than Australia. Like the cost to do Connor's visa was close to 10 to 15 grand all up. With that, well, we did hire an immigration consultant for you though.
Yeah.
Because that was very risky with his visas because Connor, well, we had a kid and I was pregnant. Was I pregnant with Riley?
No, I don't think so.
But we wanted to make sure he was definitely going to stay. Whereas Canada, if worse comes to worse and we don't stay, instead of spending thousands of dollars on a consultant where we already find it easy, we'll just go back to Australia. So hope that clarifies things. We'll get started with these questions. All right, the number one question that I get asked a lot is why did you leave Australia to move to Canada? And I think the reason for that is a lot of people think that Australia, and it is very sunny, nice weather, no snow. I mean, there's a tiny part of Australia that has snow for a couple of months of the year, but you know, the beaches, the scenery, blah, 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 blah. Also, a few things like the pay and jobs and stuff, which I'll get into further down here. But for us, we didn't live near the beach. I grew up near the beach, it was beautiful. But as I got older and into my late teens, early 20s, I wanted to live country and remote and not around people. I'm not a real people person. I get along with everyone, but I'm a bit of a loner, aren't I?
Loner.
Yeah. I like to be around like our farm animals and doing that sort of stuff. So
I suppose my perspective of moving from
Australia to Canada.
I've moved to Australia because I seen that perspective of Australia, which was kind of like the Sunshine Coast, Brisbane, Sydney, you know, the sunny, warm weather,
Bondi Beach, or
the
whatever.
beautiful beaches, and you know that, and those parts are certainly beautiful. And if you're a city person that likes living in a city or even
on the outskirts and you go to the gym and go for runs in nature and stuff, it's great.
If that's what you're looking for, Australia is beautiful, and you know there's good pay there, there's good...
Oh, and when we say city person, we mean suburban as well, not just the city. We mean like anyone that has a house where there's a house was a house. We just say that's a city.
So we like Beg and I are more comfortable living in the country where, you know, it is half an hour trip to the closest grocery shop, or you know, there may not necessarily be a next door neighbour for 5-10 minute drive. We like that serenity and the peace and quiet. So when we were in Australia, it was nice, but we found, especially with 2 young kids now, there's so many dangers of snakes.
We haven't told them where we lived. We lived 2.5 hours inland from Perth, because if you want to buy, you know, a bigger property, a farm, a small farm or a bigger farm, you can't do that near the beach unless you're a multi-millionaire. So we bought 40 acres out in near Northam area, which is the wheat belt. So it's red dirt, gum trees, very, very, very hot, like 47 degrees most of summer, Celsius that is. No sea breeze or anything, and it's very hot, and the house doesn't keep up with the aircon. You can keep saying what you're saying, but you hadn't told them where we live.
Yeah, so you know, some people are fine with it, but we find that...
And we would have been fine if we didn't have the kids.
Yeah, we just... Everywhere we seem to move around that area, we just seem to always run into a lot of snakes, a lot of spiders.
Venomous snakes they are, not just little tree snakes.
And then with the summer weather, like little things like the flies, not that they were... Obviously not dangerous that, but they just constantly be on your face or in your way. And
when we're on the ranch, I would say to people, oh my god, the flies are so good here. Like, it was 40 something degrees on the ranch the year we came in the summer, and there was minimal flies, and there's like cows around and everything, but still the flies are pretty minimal. And everyone in BC that were taught to would be like, are you crazy? The flies are so bad here. And in Australia, you would literally walk outside and your back would be black from the flies. And you talk to people like this constantly because you don't want them in your mouth. There were so many times we swallowed flies.
It's livable, and you know, and if you like everything else around it, you can like we did deal with it.
Yeah.
But we just we've always looked at Canada and just thought, you know, why don't we give it a try before the kids get too old, get settled into school and make some sort of lifelong friends. We thought,
yeah, they were at that right age.
Check out the snow, the mountains, and
Tilly was 5 and Riley was 2 when we moved. So, and we've got 2 kids. So Yeah, I've written a whole blog explaining this. I will link it below in the description. But I also wanted to add that before I met Connor, I wanted to go work on a ranch in Canada. That was my dream. Something I'd spoken to my mum about a lot. And so I've written here, because I knew I'd forget stuff, but the rodeo, the horse and the western scene was a big reason for our move here. Rodeos are in Australia, but you've got to travel very far to get to them, whereas here they're like within every 40 minutes there's another place you can either practice or go to rodeos. Obviously the greenery of the pine trees in Australia, it's red dirt, and there are gum trees, but there's no greenery. The grass is dead where we're from,
and the ants.
And the ants were really bad. You'd go for a walk and there'd be bull ants everywhere. And I know this is not all of Australia, but if we were to settle down in Australia and bought, you know, a proper big farm, thousands of acres, it would have to be in that area in Western Australia, because that's all we could afford, and that'd be stretching it. Whereas Canada, you can get maybe 160 acres up west of Red Deer area, and you've got, you know, a glimpse of the mountains in the distance, but you've got the pine trees, a nice lake running through, river, and a good house, good quality house, so for the same price. So, and you're still, you know, close to amenities like the shops and everything. I wrote, yes, obviously what Connor said. So the photography as well. I like taking photos. The scenery here is a little more picturesque, and I don't know whether that's because we're not from here, so we think it's great, but if a Canadian went to Australia, they'd be like, wow, it's so epic, the views, the difference, like the red dirt. Canada always attracted me.
Yeah, they both have their beautiful spots, and, you know, there's both benefits to two different countries with just...
Depends what you want.
Yeah, this is one that we thought we'd try out, and we're enjoying it so far.
Yeah, and one other thing of the reason we left Australia and moved to Canada is I've always wanted a big F truck, and I have an F350 that cost, what, a quarter of the price of an Australian one if I bought one in Australia. If I had to go back to Australia, I'd have to go back to a shitty little car, and I mean, I don't have to have a little car, but I just would always be comparing my big F truck with the nice ranch seats inside, King Ranch seats.
Yeah, Beg has small man syndrome.
You will not catch me in a little car. Anyway, next question. How expensive is rent in Canada compared to Australia? Before we begin this question though, I do need to say we moved to Canada right in the peak of COVID. So prices have changed a lot from when we lived in Australia. And before answering this and before this video, I did look online for the answers, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, you're right, you say.
We did find from like our initial research before moving here that the rent had gone up dramatically. It is expensive here in Canada, and I think it's expensive whether you're living in the city, whether you're living rural, and it's also very hard to find the right rental. But I think
also because of us though, we were looking for acreage.
Yeah, but still talking to like I still talking to my parents back in the UK, and your father back in Australia. Like the renting market and the housing market still, it's very hard to find a rental in any country at the moment, and yeah, it's just, I think the prices have gone up because of that.
Yeah, so when we came here on holiday in 2019 and we moved here 2021, we came on that holiday to work out whether or not we wanted to actually move here. We came during winter, sort of the worst time to come on a holiday, but we still loved it. And we were doing research back then, and you know, rent wasn't too bad. But I'll just show you an example. So this is in Alberta. It depends where you live. BC, British Columbia, is a lot more expensive for rent, especially on the coast where Vancouver is, than it is in Alberta. It just really depends. And Toronto is more expensive than certain provinces. Saskatchewan's one of the cheaper ones. Manitoba's probably one of the cheaper ones, because
it's less scenery.
Yeah, less scenery, and you're not as close to things, and I don't know. It just is. So the regular suburban living for a townhouse, all to yourself, like you're not sharing it, and that's another thing I'll get into. A lot of people advertise their houses and you don't get the whole house. So you might get the top 2 stories and then the basement is rented out to someone else. So if you are coming here, check that out in the description of any rental places or ads, because you know that caught us out a few times, and then you ring up and they go, yeah, you don't get the basement. And I would hate that with 2 kids, constantly trying to make them nice and quiet, so then you know the people downstairs don't get annoyed. But for a regular house to yourself, you're looking at minimum in southern Alberta $2,000 a month, so 500 a week minimum. For a house to yourself, so that's a townhouse, sorry, that would be a townhouse. So your townhouse is like house, and they're sort of combined, like the walls, or sort of like a UK house, like a lot of the houses in the UK are like similar, where your house is sort of attached.
Depends where you are, but
you get the whole house to yourself, but it's attached to the wall. And then for a house to yourself, like you've got a backyard, a front yard, and a driveway, you're looking at minimum 2,400 a month. What? What's wrong?
Lots of lollies.
We'll get you some lollies in a minute, some candy for the kids coming in and interrupting. And for a basement, I've seen as low as 1,200 a month, but that would be like 1 bedroom, maybe 2 bedrooms, a little kitchenette, and the lounge room, like that's all in one area, and then it's got the 2 little bedrooms, and you'd have your own, hopefully, private access out the back. So it is quite expensive. It would be a lot easier if you didn't have kids. You know, you come over as a couple on an IUC or as a single person, but it is very expensive. The further north,
a lot of the townhouses also, one thing that might slip people's mind, but a lot of them don't have their own driveway. So you end up having to park your car on the street, and you know, with me working and then Beck at home looking after the kids, we have 2 vehicles, and we weren't very keen on that idea.
And
either.
if you got to plug it in, you got to run a big extension cord, and like my truck would have to be plugged in. So and then the further north of Alberta, so this is just based on Alberta, what I'm telling you, but it's cheaper, and it's because not as many people want to live further north, not because it's not beautiful, but it's colder for longer of the year. We don't get the Chinook winds that come through from the mountains that melt the snow like you do in southern Alberta, so that's something to think about.
So the third question would be, what is the school system like? Presumably different across provinces. What's it like compared to the UK?
So I've written down here, I wrote this last week, so I can't really remember, but it's sort of hard to compare to the UK because I've never lived there. I mean, Connor lived in Northern Ireland.
My schooling was the UK schooling system, but I've tried my best to forget it. So...
Well, we'll compare it to Tilly's experience in Australia. I know that's different. So when we moved to the ranch in BC, we lived very remote, and we had 2 choices. We could either put Tilly on a bus for over an hour and drive her all the way to Merritt, like the bus would take her to Merritt. I didn't like that idea because then she would get off the bus, school wouldn't start for another 10-15 minutes, she'd be in the playground on her own, and yes, there were education assistants walking around in vests, you know, keeping an eye on kids, but I didn't like the idea in case someone kidnapped her. And I wouldn't know if something had happened until, you know, they do the absent roll and then they text message you. And she was only 6 years old. Like for me, as someone from Australia where the bus isn't a huge thing, here it's huge in Canada. I just didn't feel comfortable with that. Well, we both did.
Well, even like the buses that are in Australia, like there are certainly a lot of kids taking a bus in Australia. Like the local school that we were taking Tilly to in Australia, we had a supervisor take them off the bus. They all wore a high-vis shirt,
and
they were all lined up and taken to the classroom and checked in. Whereas we find here that the kids...
Well, just at that school anyway, they were not. The kid Tilly had to cross a road on her own to get to the school. Even
this school, like there's a lot more independence for the kids to get out of the bus and get to the classroom by themselves, and the bus does generally park.
What are you talking about? The school that she's at now?
Yeah.
I haven't even mentioned that yet. I'm talking about the ranch.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying. But even the bus at the ranch going to the one in town, like they do park beside the the school, but it's kind of up to that kid's independence to get into that classroom and make sure they get there. And till they 5 years old, 6 years old, we just weren't overly
comfortable with
no.
So there was a school on the reserve next door. It was only a 5-minute drive from the ranch. I asked if Tilly could go there, and they were more than happy, and she had the best time. I've written here that she had way more hands-on education, which is great for that age. She went on a lot of field trips and learnt about the culture, and also learned about the history and the tragic graves of the kids in the residential schools. That came out about the Kamloops one right when we were on the ranch. She also learned about the Okanagan language and all the music and the drums, and she even got to release some owls into the wild as well. So she really actually loved that school, but because we moved to Alberta, we had to change schools, and she did a year or probably 8 months where I drove her to school. But the school she's at now, the traffic is ridiculous to get in and out. It takes me 45 minutes to leave the school to get home. So we opted for the bus. She's friends with the kids next door. We all play and hang out and have a few drinks sometimes. So the adults have drinks and the kids play. So we were comfortable with putting Tilly on the bus with them. One of the kids is 16, so she's always got someone to look after her. And I drive her to the end of the driveway. The bus picks her up, and then after school, obviously, I'm there to pick her up as well. We do notice the schooling here is a lot longer than Australia. The hours, it depends on the school. In Australia, it's about 8:45 to 3 o'clock, and then you usually have an early close of about 2:30, 1 day a week. Here, she has to be at school at 8:45 and finishes at 3:40 every day. And one day she finishes at 1:20. But the day she finishes at 3:45, she's not off the school bus until 4:45. So it is extremely long. And then in winter, it's dark, really early. It's dark for a long time, and then dark early at night. So,
yeah. But I think to compare to the UK, she's 7 years old, and she's in year 2, so P2.
Yeah, grade 2.
It's fairly similar age breaks, I think, from what I can remember. And Riley will be joining school this year, and they are running an intermittent, 2 days, 3 days a week?
I don't know the schedule yet, but they're half days, which is a little frustrating. In Australia, the school Tilly was at, it was 2 full days a week, and then 3 full days a week, then 2 full days a week, then 3 full days. Here it's half days, and I don't know how any parent can work when you've got a half day. And then I'm going to have to drive him to school, pick him up, then the school bus for Tilly, and then, which is a bit of a pain. Also, I was running through some things that are different to Australia, but Connor was saying very similar to the UK is how it is here. Like breakfast club. I don't know if that's a UK thing, but Tilly has her breakfast at home, and then she'll come home and be like, oh, I had this and this and this for breakfast. And I'm like, but I feed you before school, and I didn't realise there was a breakfast club that anyone can have and join in on.
They have a common room where they can all go and have cereal.
Well, it's in the hallways of the classrooms, and then they just jump into the classroom and eat. And you don't have to get to school early for that. It just is once you rock up, you can grab it.
Yeah, I don't recall, and I don't know of any in the UK running that
okay.
System.
Well, I did say that they have their lunches and recess indoors,
which is common
in the UK.
For the UK.
In Australia, no way. Even if it's 40-something degrees, you're outside. And then I said, they all have their own coat racks, and then they have to have indoor shoes and outdoor shoes, which is not something in Australia. You just wear your sneakers in Australia. But here, because of the mud or the snow, they have outdoor shoes, and then once they get inside, they put their indoor sneakers on.
And I know in the UK, we definitely had coat racks outside our classrooms, but I think we only had one pair of shoes. I don't think we were changing our shoes to go inside. Yeah, okay.
And then they keep their indoor shoes at school all year. Which is good, but sometimes I don't know whether or not she still fits in them, so I'm wondering if she's too small for them. Their summer holidays are longer in Canada than Australia, but they're set up differently. In Australia, you have 4 school holidays a year, and they're all, so 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and then the fourth one's about 6 weeks over Christmas. Here they do 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
Your Christmas is in the summer, so yeah. Compared to the UK, the Canada compared to UK, we share this very similar holiday breaks in school.
But then the long holidays in Canada are in summer, which is July, August roughly, and that's 8 weeks, and that is hell for me because 8 weeks, I mean, I love it, it's great, but you get to the 6th week and it's like, oh my God, when does school start?
Yeah. I think any parent would agree.
Yeah. All right, number 4, what was this a plan when you first started dating? Like, was the moving to Canada a plan when we first started dating?
No, I don't think Big brought it up to me for probably 4 or 5 years into the relationship.
Yeah, so what happened was I was single for a long time, like for a good year and a bit, and I met Connor, and at the time I was working as a teacher in a remote town, and he was a farmhand. This sounds like a raunchy novel.
It was.
And no, it was not. Don't say that to our viewers. Anyway, and I rang my mum and was like, I'm miserable in this teaching job. All through university, I did not want to be a teacher. I just sort of kept going, and I was like, well, I've already done a year, I'll do another year, and you know, I finished it. Did a year and a bit of teaching. I love the kids and stuff, but it wasn't for me. And I saw this advertisement on, I think it was Facebook, for ranch jobs for summer over in Alberta and BC. And I said to Mum, oh my God, I want to apply for this. Like, this sounds great. And Mum's like, but you just met Connor. Like, I mean, 3 weeks into knowing him. We didn't even know if we were in a relationship or... And Mum was like, you can't, he seems like such a nice guy. You can't just go off. And it wasn't until I think I was pregnant with Tilly or after Tilly, I don't know when it was, but I brought it up to Connor and said, you know, I really wish I had have brought that up to you, but I thought it would have been weird, you know, within a few weeks, being like, hey, I'm going to go off here. If you want to tag along, you can or not. And he's like, you should have, I would have done it. So
yeah, at that stage in my life, I was still a traveller, still travelling Australia.
Yeah.
And just
not settled down.
Just enjoying the experiences. So if at that time it was
dying, yeah.
If at that time it was brought up, there's probably a good chance I would have jumped at it, just experience it.
But yeah, but if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had the kids we've got, and we wouldn't have had the money we've got from working in Australia, and yeah, things wouldn't have worked out. So I'm glad we did it with the kids because it's a good experience for them too.
Number 6, what's been the toughest part of moving halfway around the world?
Yeah. I'd say, when Connor brought this up the other day, and I'm going to steal his one, is setting up our whole life in a new country, and especially with 2 little kids, it's very hard. When we landed in Vancouver, because of COVID, we had to do 2 weeks quarantine in a hotel room. It had 2 bedrooms and a common area, which was great. We got a little suite, but with 2 kids for 2 weeks and through jet lag, and
yeah,
it was hell.
You made a video on that, so you can't see that.
Yes, I'll link it. It's a quarantine one, but
it was fun.
Yeah, you were allowed to get like Uber Eats or skip the dishes or DoorDash or something. I can't remember it at the time, but you could get it brought up, and I remember seeing that I could get whiskey brought up to the room, and I was like, thank God. So yeah, we could have our music on and live our normal life, but it was just in this little suite, and that sucked.
Yeah,
and then
very confined space for 2 kids that didn't really know what was going on.
No, and then we got out of quarantine after 2 weeks, and then we had to buy a truck or a vehicle. We had to get our social security, like tax numbers. We had to get bank accounts set up. We had to get a rental car to get around to do all this. We had to, what else? We had to set up new doctors, driver's license. You know, I have thyroid conditions, to find a new specialist for my thyroid.
You had to get your SIN number, did you say that?
Yeah, the tax security number. Then we had to buy all new furniture, like, because we only came over with 6 suitcases. So we had to get all new furniture, beds, mattresses, everything. And we had 9 days to do it. and then we had to go straight out to the ranch. And in that 9 days, we had booked an Airbnb, and we thought we got the whole house, but it was just the basement, like I said before. So, and Riley was having night terrors at the time through the routine changes, so he would wake up at night screaming, and we were so stressed. So for me, that was the hardest part of moving over, is that setting up your life.
Yeah, and in those 2 weeks, like, things had to be done in order. Like, the SIN number had to be created before we could have a bank account
or something like that.
And then, like, not, like, as Beck was saying, like, just not knowing the country. Like, you can do research online, but until you get here or get to any country, you don't really
Like, we went to go do the tax number, but then we get there and they're like, you have to line up, but then the lining up was like an hour and a bit. And then you go in there and only one at a time could go in, but we had the kids and it was freezing cold, and because of COVID you had to line up and only 2 people could be in the whole centre at a time. And it's just silly things like that are so stressful. That wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have the kids with you, but you know.
But even
they were amazing, the kids though.
Yeah, and even choosing the right bank, which we're still not sure if we have or not, but like, just, you know, which one's going to be best for us, and you have to make that decision in such a short period of time. Picking a vehicle, trying to find a vehicle.
Make sure you're not getting ripped off with things, which we did with furniture. Like, we bought really nice quality furniture, but because of COVID, we thought, okay, we'll get it all here in Vancouver because we're going out to this ranch. We didn't know if there was anything close by, which there was. We could have gone to Kamloops or Merritt, but we bought everything in Vancouver, which is super expensive, and then most of it didn't rock up for 6 weeks. So we didn't have a bed or anything. We had just a mattress on the floor for 6 weeks, no couch.
I suppose the other one there that maybe some Canadians think, oh, well, you should have just Googled it and looked at Kamloops or looked at Merritt and you would have known, but we didn't know the name of the shops.
Yeah, we didn't know,
didn't know, like,
is Jag Furniture a good shop? Is Ashley's Furniture a good shop? Are they crap? Are they expensive? Like, we don't know all your guys' stores and which ones are the best to go to. And
so, and that'll be the same for anyone moving to a new country. You don't know which grocery shop's the cheapest, which one sells the best furniture, where can you get the best deals for, eggs. And
what I would recommend is going on Facebook Marketplace. There are some good deals, but at the time when we were there, people were selling stuff at stupid prices in Vancouver because of COVID, like secondhand table this for like $3,000, and I'm like, but it's from IKEA for like $1,000.
IKEA, some of the IKEA items on Facebook was actually more expensive than going to IKEA.
Because IKEA couldn't get things in stock. So we sort of came at a shitty time, but I've written here, our adventure outweighs all of this. Like, we wouldn't trade it. Like, we did what we did, and
we did that in 2 weeks.
We did it in 10 days, and that was including moving Airbnbs. And then another thing that was really hard, which is also in the video I linked at the beginning, was we flew our 2 dogs over. So that was planning at the beginning. We had to put them in a kennel 3 weeks before. The day or 2 days before we left Australia, but then we had 2 weeks quarantine, and then at the end of our buying all of our furniture and stuff, when the day we were heading to the ranch, we'd hired a trailer with all our furniture. We went to the airport to pick the dogs up, and the airport company that I'd hired for the pet transport told us the wrong day. So poor Connor, we drove all the way to the ranch, like 5 hours, the Coquihalla Highway in winter, which is very dangerous. And we're now learning to drive on the opposite side of the road to what we're used to, because in Australia you drive on the left and here you drive on the right. And we drove all that way, and then the next day Connor had to drive all the way back up to Vancouver Airport to pick up the dog. So things like that.
Go through customs.
And the poor dogs were exhausted, and we went through a lot, but also it was exciting through those times too, picking out furniture and stuff. It was just a little stressful because it was quick, you got today to get it.
Yeah.
We wish we'd done that part a little differently and just maybe took our time and did wait till we went to Kamloops, and because we ended up sleeping on the floor anyway, we could have just bought mattresses because it didn't get delivered until 6-7 weeks later.
So no, I suppose that some of the toughest things moving a country across the world, it definitely makes it tougher when you have kids, like responsibility. If you're just traveling by yourself, like I have done in Australia, things were reasonably good, but it's really just learning how things are done here in Canada, and you know, even how employment pays and the deductions like tax and insurance and that, it's different to Australia, and that took a little bit of, you know, wrapping my head around to work out how much we were actually bringing in at the end of the week.
Yes, which ended up far less than what we worked out beforehand. So you can go on online calculators online, type in Alberta tax.
Yeah. But I don't think they
deductions, and then they're pretty spot on.
Okay.
So you type in your salary of what you're getting, and then it will tell you your provincial tax sales, blah blah blah. But I go into that in another question. All right, number 7. We need to move on because this is going to be a very long vlog for me to edit. Are you eventually allowed to go between Australia and Canada whenever you want? We can do that now if we want to. Like, we're allowed to come in and out because we've got a visa for a set amount of time. At the beginning, we couldn't because of obviously COVID. Like, we didn't want to risk leaving and coming back in because, you know, jabs or restrictions or all that crap. It just was not worth leaving the country. And when we moved here, there was no requirements of that. It was just quarantine. It was very new at the beginning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But what is it? So once we have permanent residency, we have to stay in the country, and I have not got the exact figure, but I think it's 3 out of 5 years you have to live here, and then you can apply for citizenship. You can't just apply for permanent residency, move back to Australia straight away, stay there for 5 years, and then apply for citizenship here in Canada, because you have to stay here for a set amount of years. So then once you've got citizenship, you can move wherever you want. Connor's still a citizen of Australia and Ireland, but you live here, so we better get the kids their snacks.
Let's take a break.
We'll have a little break. All right, the kids are sorted now. We can get back to it, but we're gonna have to be a little shorter on our answers, I think. All right, did you take much over with you from Australia or sell it and start fresh?
No, we sold pretty much everything.
Yeah, so even our farm, we had a 40-acre farm. We sold it.
Yeah, all our furniture. Everything that, you know, wasn't sentimental or...
Yeah, so we sold the cars, we sold the sheep, we sold horses, we sold all the furniture, the farm, and then we were going to move, and then COVID hit, so we had to find a rental for 6 months and then that sort of gave us a little bit more time though to sell furniture for a bit more money rather than just getting rid of it. Had a few garage sales and stuff.
And then we had 2 suitcases, normal size suitcases each, so 8 suitcases in total.
No, we had 6. The kids had 1 each and we had 2.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So we had 6 suitcases, and in those suitcases were a few toys that were sentimental to the kids and us, and we had the family photos, keepsakes like baby books. And then we had a few documents that we needed, you know, for proof to get bank accounts or whatever. And then a few clothes, and that was literally it. That's all we took over. And then, so once we sold everything, we sort of, I'll actually link a video here of it, but we had a garage sale, and then the last 2 weeks of us, my phone's going off. The last 2 weeks of us being in Australia, we sort of just slept on mattresses while selling off little knickknacks that we had, and then once we were done, we sort of just gave my dad the mattresses, because at the time my sister was moving home and she needed mattresses, so she got them.
Number 9, is it difficult to get used to the weather, like being so cold? And I'm used to it. Not maybe minus 35, but...
Well, it's not very often that it's that.
No,
I think people really drilled into us that it was going to be so cold, I can't believe you're moving there, blah, 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 that we really hyped it up thinking it was going to be terrible, like we're going to walk outside and our fingers are going to fall off from frostbite, that we don't even think it's that bad.
No, and it helps that neither of us have to work outside.
Yes.
Like when it's cold, you can come in.
Yes. And everywhere's heated, so like the worst bit is you get out the car if it's windy. That's the worst bit. If it's not windy, it's not that bad, but you get out the car and every single shop's got heating in it, and There's even passes in the city where it's got like a tunnel to walk across the road because it's all heated.
Yeah.
You know, it's not...
And it's a lot easier to put layers on than take layers off.
Yes, like in Australia it's that hot, you just want to rip your skin off. You know, you've got no more layers to go. So it's also probably a bit of a novelty for us as well because it's only us, well, we've sort of had 3 winters over 2 years because we came here at the end of the winter. But also we get Chinook winds here in Alberta. So a Chinook wind is a wind that comes from the Rocky Mountains and it's a warm wind and it really melts everything and it can change the temperature. Like it could be 0 degrees and it'll bring it up to plus 20 degrees, or it can sway the other way where it's minus 20 and then it goes up to 0 or whatever, but it can alter it by at least 20 degrees.
Yeah, well, like yesterday was 8 degrees and the day before was minus 14. So
yeah,
you know,
it changes.
We do get breaks from the extreme cold weather.
Yes.
And then in summer it's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I love summer and spring because it's not too hot and I love it so much. Yeah. But one thing that was a little different for us to get used to was the plugging the trucks in and getting used to that and realizing you need to plug it in.
Yeah, I suppose just life in that cold weather, what you have to do to prepare for it.
It'll be the same as well when we've got horses. So we had our little mini horse, but we sort of sold him to a new home or rehomed him actually. We didn't sell him. Right as winter sort of started, but that will be a big change for when we do have our own farm here of how to manage animals stock in the snow. But other than that, it's been pretty fine.
Yeah.
Is fuel expensive? So compared to Australia, no, Australia at the moment is more expensive in fuel, but it did go through a phase which the whole world did go through where it was very expensive. My truck's diesel, I'm paying about $1.87, $1.90 some days. When we moved here, it was $1.35.
Yeah.
This is Canadian dollars.
But yesterday we got $1.45.
$1.45 yesterday. So roughly that. I know Australia is like $2 something. That's in Australian dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it has increased since being here, and it is expensive.
What's gas though for you? Because your little car is gas.
It's about, in most places in Alberta, it's about $1.30, but you know, if you pick the right places, you can get it for $1.15. But you know, I think overall, generally, prices have increased a lot in the last year for fuel. But I think other countries are much more expensive than here, and hence why we have 6-litre and 7-litre engines.
V8s. Are you allowed to travel into the US, the United States, whenever you want? Yes. So all you need to go from Canada into the United States is your passport and an ETA, I think, or is an ETSA. I get them mixed up. You can look it up. It's just a visa. I think it's about 14 or 20 bucks, or I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And it lasts 2 years, and you just ask a bunch of questions on there. They ask your passport, criminal history, and stuff. And as long as you pass it, they send you the visa, and it's valid for 2 years. We have been planning on going down to Montana, but we're sort of waiting to see what happens with our visas here first. Don't really want to leave the country and then come back in and something's wrong with our visas. So, but I would love to do an RV trip, go down to all the national parks, Yellowstone and Yoho and all the national parks on the border of Alberta, BC and Washington and Montana. That would be gorgeous.
Yeah, once we know what we're doing here, it'd be nice to start spreading our wings.
Yes, and it's so strange to think that we could just fly to Mexico or we can fly to the US and it's only a couple $100. Like coming from Australia, everything's so far away from us, other countries I mean, so because Australia is massive and isolated. Is health insurance expensive? Do you want to answer that
so
one?
Yeah, health insurance here is mandatory. And you usually pay that through your employer. They offer you different packages sometimes. So so
you don't have to pay the full gold one or whatever they call it. You can just go the budget one.
I think it's expensive, but
we get a lot for it. So I have a lot of health issues, which I'll go into another video. But I choose to go the naturopathic doctor way rather than the medical doctor. I don't know what you call it, GP or whatever. And they cover a lot. Same with physio,
Yeah.
chiro, all that, like all the alternative sort of medicine ways. They really cover it like 100% most of the time.
I think like it's not as expensive as the US, but I think it's more expensive than Australia or the UK.
Oh, I don't think so. You didn't have health cover in Australia. You just used the government, like Medicare.
I didn't need it. That's what I mean.
Yes,
like,
and whereas here you do have like Medicare, but you have to have private health.
Yeah.
But in Australia, if we had private health, for what we get now, for the whole family, it would have been $350 a month.
Yeah.
So it probably is the same, but it covers more here, I find, and it covers that alternative medicine. I used to get physio and chiro and stuff done in Australia, and it'd be like, oh great, your private health cover covered 20%, and it's just crap. Obviously it depends on your cover, but yeah, I think it's pretty good, and we get a lot covered. You obviously get capped out though. You can't just keep going to the naturopath. Like there'll be a certain limit where they go, you're not covered anymore. Are wages more or less in Canada? You can answer this one since you're the main income earner.
They are, I suppose they're less. They're probably more than the UK, but less than Australia.
Less in Canada?
Yeah, so Canada would be less than Australia, but probably more than the UK.
Yes, that's what
But this is based purely only on my sector of work, so that's agricultural.
That's everything, I think.
Farm work, dealership work. Maybe if you're in IT or some sort of more based office work, it may be very similar, but yeah, I know they pay a little less here than they do in Australia.
Yes, definitely. Australia's minimum wage is, I think it's $21 something, and here is $14 something, and it depends on which province, but Alberta's one of the higher ones, and we get $14 something minimum wage. So there is a huge difference. Also, the cost of living in Canada is higher than it is in Australia, and the wage is lower in Canada than Australia. So it's sort of lose-lose with that in Canada, and that's what scenery sort of keeps us here with that, and the seasons and stuff.
Which is question number 14 is the cost of living.
More than Australia, yes. But then it also depends on the province. Like British Columbia, people joke and say it stands for bring cash, BC, because it is way more expensive. And I'll go into that further down here, but things sort of even out.
It also depends on your lifestyle. Like we talked about our groceries the other day, and we don't get how people can get groceries for so cheap.
Like somebody I know says she only pays $200 for groceries, but then we're paying $350 a week. But I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, and we eat. We don't get takeaway or anything like that. Whereas some people would say their groceries only cost $200 for the week, but they get takeaway a few times, so they're not including that into their groceries, like their food costs.
And they're buying a lot more. Like we don't buy that much pre-made meals. It's all
we don't. Yeah, everything's cooked from scratch. So. And we bulk buy from Costco as well, and package it up, buy lots of stewing meat, and then I'll put it into different containers, and so that saves money. But is the cost of living more than Australia? I'd say things are sort of on par. Like Australia's rent's cheaper, but then I've written that the car rego in Canada, I've written that the car registration in Canada is cheap. It's only like, for our truck, $150 for the year, whereas in Australia it'll be over $1,000.
Yeah.
But then the insurance here is expensive, and it would be cheaper in Australia. So there's just lots of things where it evens out. But I think overall Australia would be cheaper to live in. Somebody asked me where I work. So I have a degree as a Bachelor of Education. I went to uni, and I am a qualified teacher, kindergarten to grade 7. Don't like it, not my thing. I wish I had followed something a little more, something I could do where I could work from home, with the kids, like hairdressing, or, that's not my passion either, or something.
It's something a bit more universal that I could
do from home. Like I have so many friends that are hairdressers that have had kids, and they're able to still keep working, and they have the kids in the other room while they've got a hairdresser at home set up. I have worked in like 50 different jobs though. I bounce around, and my biggest passion would be horses or agriculture, farming. I've worked in cafes. I was studying in interior design, designing houses and stuff. I studied equine massage therapy. Like, I've bounced around. I'm a bit of a wanderer with jobs. But I haven't worked properly full time since, well, I did that casual job working at the Mouchet sale yards, like receiving cattle. And that was with Riley, but it was just too hard. So I earn money through YouTube, not a lot, very minimal. With these videos, the ads that you see on them, if you don't skip through them, I get a tiny bit of ad revenue from that. I earn money from an online Western store that I've got called Out West Rancher, and I sell Western items. I don't have a lot on there at the moment, but I make a bit of money through that. And then I have an Etsy store where I design logos or graphics for people, or prints for bedrooms or nurseries, digital products. So I make money that way. There was something else I make money from. What was it?
OnlyFans?
No, I do not have OnlyFans. I have said to Connor I should start selling feet pictures though. People make fortune with that. But no, I do not have OnlyFans. But if you do have OnlyFans, I'm not judging. And then Connor's an electrician by trade, but he's a precision farming specialist.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get through the things. You talk about the next one then. Try and decipher my answers of tax here, because I don't think you'll be able to.
Yeah, no.
Do you want me to talk about this one too? It says the cost of BC living versus Alberta living.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing, as you just said, is tax. Like, the tax in BC is just ridiculous.
Yes, so it is. What did I write? I needed to decipher what I wrote a while ago. It says, so I've written that when you buy groceries in Canada, the price you see on the tag, say you pick up a jar of peanut butter and it says $5, it is not $5. When you go scan it at the checkout, they add taxes on. So that's different to us. Well,
that's not here though.
Yes,
that's
it is.
in BC.
They add 5% on at the end in here.
Okay, I didn't think so.
I'm pretty sure they do. Anyway, in Australia, GST and stuff's all included in the price on the tag in the aisles of the grocery store. In BC, there's different certain taxes. So there is provincial sales tax and then GST tax. So if you buy, alcohol, where did I write it? Liquor, you get 15% tax. So 5% is GST, and 10% is the provincial sales tax. But then if you buy basic groceries, there's no tax, like if you buy dairy, meat and veg. But then if you buy restaurant meals, books, magazines, taxi ride, food, snacks, there's 5% GST, but no provincial tax. It depends on what you get. So you can look them up online. I'm not going to go through all of them, but Alberta is cheaper to live. So Alberta, apparently, from what I looked up, don't quote me, there is no provincial tax. It's the only province in Canada, I think, with no provincial tax, and there's only the GST of 5%.
Yeah, whether that's correct or not, certainly the tax is certainly a lot cheaper here than it is in BC. So.
Yeah. We're saving probably $100 a week on groceries, buying the same groceries in Alberta than we were in BC. So
yeah, even in the same stores.
Yes.
Store brands.
All right. Do you want one?
No.
Don't eat my jerky.
Oh, try it.
Oh, that's my jerky. All right. Well, this sort of goes into it. Favorite things about Alberta, and here we are chewing on jerky. It is very much a Western sort of feel to it, very country. A lot of people say it's the hick province, but it's us.
Yeah, well, where we live, we have got mountain views and
the Rocky Mountains.
I think we almost look at them every day and just admire them. Like, it's.
Yeah, we don't ever take them for granted. The land in Alberta is a lot cheaper than anywhere in Canada. Saskatchewan, Manitoba and stuff are cheaper, but to have the mountain views is cheaper than BC. We really like that.
I think just the lifestyle that's available here.
And the diverse landscapes, like mountains, the prairies, badlands, foothills, like there's a diverse range of landscapes here.
Yeah.
The national parks, obviously.
There's lots of activities to do here too, and not that we've done that many just yet.
We're getting to the end of this video and the kids are getting restless upstairs, so we're going to have to finish it off. But last question, how expensive are houses to purchase in your area? So we are not purchasing this, we don't own this house, we're renting. We're on 20 acres in Cochrane area.
Yeah.
We got a very good deal. We cannot believe, like after looking at rentals recently to live closer to where he's working, we definitely got a good deal for where we are. But I looked up some housing prices. It's very expensive to live in the area we are, Cochrane, if you have acreage. For a regular house, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with like a yard and stuff, you're looking at probably 600 to 750,000 Canadian dollars. That's not a townhouse, it's like an individual house with a yard and stuff. Yeah. Further north of Alberta, where we will probably end up buying if we get permanent residency, is a lot cheaper because you don't get the Chinooks. It's not close to a city, like as in Calgary or Edmonton. I'm talking between the two. West of Red Deer looks like a good area, and you're looking at probably for 80 to 100 and something acres if you can find it. It's very rare to find, with a nice 4-bedroom house, not necessarily brick, it might be like a mobile home on it, with a shed, a barn, sometimes an arena, very rare, with some yards on it. 600 to 700,000, but that's another 2 hours, maybe 3 hours north of Cochrane.
Yeah.
I also thought I'd add that if you are looking at moving here or coming over on a holiday or whatever, the apps that we use to look up rentals, for rentals we use Facebook pages. So we would go on to say we wanted to live in High River or Cochrane area, we'd join the buy and sell page, post an ad up. We also would look up rental groups on there. Then there's the Rent Faster app and Kijiji, which is sort of like Australia's Gumtree for purchasing your own house to buy. Point 2 Homes is a website, and Realtor.ca and Remax. They're ones that I've used. There are other ones, but
that's it.
Done. We're done. We're probably going to film a second one today, and I'll probably get out of these clothes so it looks like another day. But since we've already got the set up, we may as well keep on going. Yeah,
well, the kids seem to be behaving.
So the next video, I thought, because I've already written a blog about it, we could either do 14 reasons I love living in Canada compared to Australia, or we can do 14 things we wish we knew about Canada before moving from Australia. Which one do you want to do?
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
We'll pick one. I think we should do 14 things we wish we knew about Canada before moving from Australia, because it's something that other people don't really do. Like lots of people do the pros and cons, but these are things we wish we knew before moving. Not necessarily bad things, but yeah. Anyway, like usual guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, go check out my Etsy store or our outwestrancher.com website. Links are all in the description. And yeah.
Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.